So the first bill is sponsored by Chairwoman Serpa. It's House Bill 5188. It's an act related to criminal offenses, specifically Trade in Animal Fur Act. And it prohibits the sale, offer of sale, trade, or distribution of fur products as defined, and makes any violation punishable by a fine of up to $500 or up to a minimum $500 or up to $5,000 and up to 1 year in jail, making it a misdemeanor. I believe that the chairwoman is here, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chairman Craven, and thank you, members, for hearing this bill. Those of you who've been on judiciary for a few years, I'm not sure if you heard it last year, but I know you did hear some testimony about this bill the year before. And actually, it's a practical bill, number one, because fur is really out of style, and there are very, very many good replacements for it on the market. And you have some good testimony in front of you. And I was particularly taken by the testimony, you should have gotten it by email, from the Animal Defenders International. And I will spare you the graphics of how these animals are killed, housed and killed, specifically for their skins. And to be clear, we're not talking about animals that we consume for food. We're not talking about the animals that are taken in the process of hunting. We're talking about animals like fox, like mink, like raccoons, who are bred specifically for taking their skins in the cruelest, most inhumane ways. And, you know, if you have the stomach for it and you want to click to one of the links provided to us by the ADI and watch the videos, A Lifetime Living and Dying on a Fur Farm, you know, I would challenge you to take a look, and I think you'll see the humane aspect of this bill. That's number one in my book. Number two is the practical aspect, in that I think all of the women on this committee tonight know that there are many, many good substitutes for fur. They're just as warm as and much less expensive than. And frankly, the third issue is the impact on our environment and our ecosystem, and protecting our ecological systems. The process of skinning and taking the furs from these animals uses up a great deal of energy. It's energy intensive and a large input of fossil fuels. They take a lot of fossil fuels. And there are many, many ads that are misleading about this industry. So Connecticut and Massachusetts, I believe, are introducing similar bills this year, and stores that we're all accustomed to, Macy's, Bloomingdale's, Gucci, Prada, not that many of us shop there, I suppose, TJ Maxx, and so many more have announced fur-free products, and they praise these bills. Nordstrom's stock went up after it announced it was going fur-free. And as a result of my own experience working on animal legislation in the years I've been here, Rhode Islanders care about the humane treatment of their animals. That has been repeated to me over and over when I have campaigned, when I've been out in the public. People care about the humane treatment of their animals. So that's why I was proud and happy to be asked to bring this bill forward again by the Humane Society. I believe it's in keeping with the values of Rhode Islanders as to how they would like to see their animals treated. California passed this law in 2019. Wellesley, Mass. has prevented the sale of fur in their states. And as I said, Massachusetts and Connecticut are introducing the bills. And I think New York is on that list too. So, and to answer your concerns about business, we will give the businesses time to, the businesses who do have furs in their inventory to sell and phase out. We will give them time to phase out. And Chairman and members, I'll be happy to answer any questions that I can, but I know that you have some people who work in the Humane Society, and I think ADI on the line, but I'll answer questions that I can answer.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Are there any questions for the sponsor? Yes, Edie. You gotta unmute, Edie. You're muted still.
Chairwoman Serpa, you mentioned Connecticut and Massachusetts introducing such legislation. Have any state passed this?
I believe that they have. I'm looking at some notes. I think California has. California has banned the sale of fur, and that's the only one that I know of off the top of my head. But I know that you have people from the Humane Society online, they'll testify, so they can answer that specific question, Representative Agello.
Just an aside, my father grew up in Iowa in a very small town, and he told my brother and me stories about hunting and trapping animals for their fur, which he sold as a young boy, not a man, a young boy. So that was probably more than 100 years ago, but it is the way that this all started, and perhaps some people still would trap and kill animals for fur coats or hats or whatever. I don't know whether we want to outlaw that at the same time that we want to outlaw fur farms. I'm not sure how I feel about this. I am an animal lover.
And I am as well.
Any further questions of the sponsor from members of the committee? Some of you I can't see because there's no pictures, so if anybody has anything to say during the course of this committee hearing, just yell out if there's a second or two with my not saying anything. So I'm assuming that no further questions, which completes Representative Serpa's testimony, or Chairwoman Serpa's testimony. And now Bob Goldberg, who is a lobbyist and is in favor of this bill. Welcome, Bob.
Thank you.
Fire away. You're up.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the House Judiciary Committee. My name is Bob Goldberg. I know most of you from past years. I am the locally registered lobbyist for the Humane Society. I'd like to take this opportunity to publicly thank Representative Serpa for sponsoring this measure, which is probably the most important measure that the Humane Society has pending at this time. The bill was introduced last year by Representative Serpa for the first time. It was heard in committee with a good reception from the committee, and then COVID hit, and this is the first opportunity I've had to be in front of you. As I said, I'm the local registered lobbyist for the Humane Society. I'm always around as soon as you let me in the building, but most of you know how to reach me anytime you have any questions about any of their legislation or would like to get further information. Please contact me, and I know you have a long schedule, and there are some experts testifying tonight, so really that's all I had to say by way of introduction. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Bob. Any questions of Mr. Goldberg by members of the committee? Seeing none, the next witness is Dr. Gail Hansen, H-A-N-S-E-N, doctorate in veterinary medicine and Master of Public Health Epidemiology.
Chairman, recognize Representative McEntee. She disappeared again.
While we're waiting for the call, I see Chairwoman McEntee has appeared somewhere here, and she wishes to have her vote, her presence counted and her votes counted.
Thank you, Chairman.
You're welcome.
I finally figured out how to get on this thing.
I have a fond memory of that setting behind you. I remember being there years ago. That's the House Chambers, for those of you who don't know. Okay.
There's a few of us here. We wish you were here.
Yep.
These numbers aren't working, Chairman.
Are you doing one? You have to do one.
I know.
9, then 1, and the area codes. Is there long distance?
Chairman, did you get my vote in the affirmative to hold for further study?
I did.
Thank you.
That happened to Garrett. Yeah.
Hi, Dr. Hanson, how are you? I'm going to pass you through to the Judiciary Committee.
Affirmative to hold for further study? I did.
Hi, this is Gail Hansen.
Thank you.
Hi, Gail. You can, your floor is yours.
Yeah.
I'm sorry?
The floor is yours. You may proceed.
Thank you. Thank you, and hello, Chairman Craven, Vice Chair, and members of the committee. Thanks for your time. My name is Dr. Gail Hansen. I am speaking on behalf of the Humane Society Veterinary Medical Association and their 9,000 members nationwide. I have over 25 years experience in infectious disease.
You can, your floor is yours.
Okay, thank you.
The floor is yours. You may proceed.
Thank you. Thank you, and hello, Chairman Craven, Vice Chair, and members of the committee. Thanks for your time. My name is Dr. Gail Hansen. I am speaking on behalf of the Humane Society Veterinary Medical Association and their 9,000 members nationwide. I have over 25 years experience in infectious disease.
You can, your floor is yours.
Okay, thank you.
The floor is yours. You may proceed.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, and hello, Chairman Craven, Vice Chair, and members of the committee. Thanks for your time. My name is Dr. Gail Hansen. I am speaking on behalf of the Humane Society Veterinary Medical Association and the 9,000 members nationwide. I have over 25 years experience in infectious disease. Yes, I'm still here. I have 25 years experience in infectious disease epidemiology, 12 years in veterinary private practice, and 5 years as a veterinary senior officer at the Pew Charitable Trust, and I'm a former state epidemiologist and state public health veterinarian for the Kansas Department of Health and Environment. And today I'm speaking in support of House Bill 5188, Rhode Island's fur sales ban. I've been closely following the link between animals, specifically animals raised for fur, and the spread of SARS-CoV-2, the virus that causes COVID-19 in humans. We already knew that mink, foxes, and raccoon dogs, all species farmed for their fur, were susceptible to infection with SARS-CoV-1 viruses, but now we know that SARS-CoV-2 has a particularly devastating impact on fur-farmed mink. Genetic analysis from the fur farms of the Netherlands and Denmark has shown that sick workers had introduced the SARS-CoV-2, which is the COVID-19 virus, to mink. The virus then mutated in the mink, and then that new variant was passed back to people. Given the high density of animals and the stressful conditions they are enduring on the farms, it appears the virus is mutating rapidly among the mink. There's also the possibility that the SARS-CoV-2 virus not only circulates on the farms, but the farms could also spread the virus to other species in the local environment. In fact, the virus was detected in wild mink near infected farms both in Utah and Oregon. And this creates the potential for a reservoir for the disease, creating a long-term risk of the virus recirculating and mutating not only in mink, but in people as well. SARS-CoV-2 outbreaks on fur farms around the world represent a serious public health risk, and it's my expert opinion that this demonstrates the need to end the fur trade to protect the public. Rhode Island can be among the leaders in this end by ending the fur sales, and I hope you support HB 5188. Thank you.
Thank you, Doctor. Any questions for Dr. Hansen?
For a reservoir for the disease, creating a long-term risk of the virus recirculating and mutating not only in mink, but in people as well. SARS-CoV-2 outbreaks on fur farms around the world represent a serious The virus was detected in vital infected farms both in Utah and Oregon. This brings the reservoir for the disease.
I'm sorry, Joanne Barbu, Northeast Regional Director of the Humane Society of the U.S. Please proceed.
That's right. Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for hearing my testimony. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. My name is Joanne Borbo, and I'm the Northeastern Regional Director for the Humane Society of the United States. And on behalf of all of our supporters in Rhode Island, I'd like to thank Representatives Serpa, O'Brien, Phillips, and Casey for sponsoring this important bill and ask you to support HB 5188, which, as you know, is the ban of new fur products in Rhode Island. The state, which has shown time and time again, as Representative Serpa mentioned, does not support animal cruelty. You have a copy of my written testimony, so I'd like to focus my verbal testimony on the unimaginable cruelty inherent in this needless industry. There's just simply no way to humanely produce fur. Every year, over 100 million animals, including mink, chinchillas, foxes, and raccoon dogs, are killed just for their fur. Over 85% of all fur comes from fur factory farms, where undomesticated animals spend their entire lives in cramped cages, deprived of the ability to engage in natural behaviors. This intensive confinement, combined with the inability to exhibit natural behaviors ingrained in them as wild animals, produces an enormous amount of stress, which leads to psychological disorders such as self-mutilation and stereotypical pacing. At the end of their short lives, mink are either killed by neck breaking or crude gassing, and foxes and raccoon dogs are killed by anal electrocution. It's been well documented that animals are bludgeoned to death or skinned while still alive for the fur trade. The concern for animal welfare continues to grow in Rhode Island and across the U.S., and consumers increasingly want products that do not involve animal cruelty. There are so many innovative materials available now that are beautiful and sustainable, but more importantly, that do not involve inflicting pain, suffering, or isolation to any wild animal. So I encourage your support of HB 5188 and want to thank you for your time.
Any questions for Joanne? Seeing none, we'll move on to the next witness. P.J. Smith, Director of Fashion Policy for the Humane Society of the U.S.
Hi, thank you, Chair Craven, Vice Chairs, and committee members. My name is P.J. Smith. I'm the Director of Fashion Policy for the Humane Society of the United States. For over a decade, I've worked with the top apparel companies, including Macy's, Michael Kors, Bloomingdale's, and Gucci, to create fur-free policies that are simply good for business. These companies understand that they're facing a changing consumer who rewards progress for animals and understands that there's no way to humanely source fur. As my colleague mentioned, there are inherent welfare problems with keeping wild animals in small cages for their entire lives. But the last year has shined a new light on why fur sales should be phased out in the state. Fur farm mink are the only species known to transmit COVID-19 to humans. Last year, outbreaks occurred on over 400 fur farms in 11 countries, including 4 U.S. states. As this virus mutates through the farms, we now have mink variants that have found in humans around the globe and the wild mink population in the United States. Because of these risks, Sweden and Denmark have suspended production, and France and the Netherlands have announced an end to mink farming completely. To answer your question, Representative, California has ended fur sales in 2019, and Wellesley, Massachusetts became the first New England city to phase out fur sales. This year, 5 other states will be joining Rhode Island in introducing fur sales bans, and the United Kingdom is actually looking to become the first country to do the same. These policies are driving innovation. Stella McCartney is now using corn-based faux fur that is biodegradable, and others are using recycled ocean plastics to make faux fur. These alternatives are better for the planet and animals. Surely if retailers want to offer products that have the same look and feel of fur, but without the cruelty or risk to public health, they can transition to these innovative materials. There's just simply no place in the modern world for fur products, and we hope you vote yes for this important bill. Thank you. And one other thing, I wanted to answer a quick question that the representative. So this, under 5188, licensed trappers and hunters and livestock would still be able to sell their pelts and hides. They just wouldn't be able to sew them into a fashion accessory and sell them within Rhode Island. And I just also want to point out that there's the common sense exemption for products that are considered byproducts of the meat trade, so cowhide, leathers, lambskin, and sheep. So just wanted to mention that. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for P.J. Smith? Seeing none, Mike Brown. Mr. Brown?
Yes, sir.
You're on. You can testify.
Thank you so much, Chair Craven. This is Mike Brown. I'm the Head of Sustainability and Public Affairs with the Natural Fibers Alliance. Thank you so much for the opportunity to testify against HB 5188. The Natural Fibers Alliance is an environmental justice coalition comprised of producers and associations that support the use of natural, sustainable materials in both clothing, accessory, and other goods. Now, we oppose this bill for several reasons. First, this bill infringes on personal choice. What clothing a person chooses to wear is a private and personal decision. What we wear is an expression of ourselves as individuals. There is no movement from the people of Rhode Island to have the government regulate what they can and cannot wear. We've seen this bill ran in other states, as Chairwoman Serpa had mentioned, Connecticut, Massachusetts, New York, all to no avail because elected officials represent that there's a slippery slope when looking at this type of legislation. The same supporters of said legislation want to currently ban leather, wool, and eventually silk. Now, regardless of personal feeling, we should not go down the slippery slope of inserting the government into people's closets. Second, banning natural fibers such as fur will harm current efforts to improve environmental sustainability and lead to unintended environmental consequences. Now, according to scientists at the International Union for Conservation of Nature, microplastic pollution in our waterways is a major threat to marine life. Researchers estimate that synthetic fabrics alone are responsible for up to 35% of the microplastic pollution in our oceans. Synthetic fibers, which are derived from fossil fuels, are the same materials that are used to make fake fur, fake wool, and other alternatives to natural fiber. People cherish high-quality natural fiber clothing, in contrast to plastic-based synthetic fibers, which are, once again, part of the throwaway mindset of fast fashion that create pollution and consumer waste. In advocating for a ban on natural fibers such as fur and advocating for plastic, you're sending the wrong message, and the impacts of such will be devastating to both our environment and future generations. To that point, I encourage you all to pass a bill similar to what was done in 2015 around microbeads. Lastly, animal activists have been found repeatedly to exaggerate or even fabricate in certain instances. Just recently, a media watchdog blasted one such activist-driven anti-fur story as significantly misleading. One common trick of the activists is to show pictures of things occurring in China and claim that that same thing is happening here in the U.S. Nothing could be further from the truth. The U.S., Canada, and Europe have their own regulated farms, regulated supply chains. We have science-based certification programs for animal welfare and sustainability, and our products are both humanely and ethically produced. Please do not fall for the misinformation. This bill is an overreach and a personal choice, creates problems, and does not serve the public interest. To that end, I urge you to vote no. Thank you.
Any questions for Mr. Brown? Seeing none, we have two witnesses that are on the same line, Bob Habashore and Dino Quattroletta.
Yeah, two witnesses.
Both you guys there?
Yeah.
Okay, whoever wants to go first.
Yes, hi, Mr. Are you guys there? Yes, we're here.
You got to shut down the volume on your computer.
Yes, we're here. You got to shut down the volume on your computer. Hold on. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, committee. I've been listening to the testimony of many people. I first like to direct a comment to Representative Serpa and make a correction on her opening statement. She mentioned that the fur business and the fur coats are out of fashion. That couldn't be further from the truth. I've been in this business going on 40 years, and to be quite honest with you, whether you believe it or not, our business is prospering. So that's a completely incorrect statement, number one. And number two, the alternative to fur, as she had said, there are alternatives that are better. And I'm not going to repeat what Mr. Brown said. But after listening to this testimony of all the so-called experts, I'd like to direct something to Representative Serpa. I haven't heard one thing. I assume that Representative Serpa is going to go after the restaurant industry, the supermarkets, the clothing stores that carry hide and leather, and I'd like to hear her comment on how she can distinguish the difference of slaughtering a cow, a pig, a lamb that people will have on their grills in the summertime and eat at any time that they want. And here's the problem that I see. This is not the issue about the fur industry. This is about the killing of animals. So therefore, if no one can distinguish the difference between killing a mink or a cow, and I haven't heard one person say how a cow or a pig is slaughtered, which I can get into that detail if you'd like. If Ms. Serpa does not agree with that, then obviously she must be in favor of hypocrisy, also a way of double standard in life, and also discrimination. We are upholding citizens in this state. We've been around for 40 years. We pay our taxes. We brought economy to the state through our industry. We don't do anything illegal. Again, to repeat what Michael Brown said, this is a free country. The last I understood that we are Americans, and we have the right to choose. We certainly don't ask Representative Serpa to wear what she wants to wear or travel where she wants to travel or eat what she wants to eat. And more times than not, I'm sure that Representative Serpa, without seeing her, probably has some type of leather product on, a handbag, shoes, makeup, which is a byproduct of fur. So this is really the issue. It's not the fur industry. It's the attack on every industry in the state of Rhode Island that has to do with meat, okay? So if the restaurant industry goes down and the fur industry goes down and the grocery stores go down, I'd like to ask Representative Serpa how she plans on replacing the tax revenue that this state desperately needs, okay, and the financial status that we're in, how she plans to correct that. And number two, okay, the problem is here in the state, we are supposed to be promoting small businesses, not destroying them. And I would love to hear her comments on that, and I will close in stating that I hope that the committee understands the truth behind this, what the future looks like going forward. It's not just the fur industry. It's going to go much deeper. Thank you very much.
Any questions for Dino? Seeing none. Bob Havishar, do you want to say anything, Bob?
Well, I think Dino said it all. The only other thing I'd like to say is that, in the, they talked about California closing down the fur business. It was only two cities, San Francisco, I think LA, and now they're being sued, by our industry because you can't take away our living when it's a viable and legal business. And that's it.
Thank you. Okay, the next witness is Chalice Hobbs. Chalice Hobbs, you're on the air, and please proceed with your testimony.
Yeah. Do you guys hear me?
I can.
All right. So, I'm Chalice Hobbs. I'm just coming here to testify in opposition to this bill. I'm part of a family fur farm here in the western side of the U.S., and it's 4 generations. My great-grandmother started it. My dad and my grandpa run it right now with my 2 brothers. I worked on the farm all growing up. From my perspective, I watched and participating in breeding the animals and feeding the animals, watering the animals, watching, veterinarian care and vaccinations to make sure everyone was healthy, and up to harvesting the animals. And from my perspective and my whole youth growing up in it, I never felt that it was inhumane. And now part of this farm is, produce, cattle, we have, chicken, so I've seen a lot of ag. One thing I think this bill fails to consider is the personal beliefs and practices and heritages of others like myself and the hundreds of American fur farmers that exist. And that I don't believe that there should be any bills that criminalize behavior unworthy of criminalization. And working on the farm put me through college. It helped fund a 2-year mission, a humanitarian mission in Central America for me. It launched me in a career in the fur industry, and while I'm currently getting my MBA. And so my point is fur farmers aren't terrible people. My dad wakes up every morning with a smile, and he's excited to go out and care for these animals. And I would just encourage and strongly encourage to oppose this bill. That we are certified. We have regulations on how we work, and I would just say in closing that it's important. I've seen the farm. I've seen how fur is raised and produced, and then I've seen the content that activists post, and I can tell you from experience that it's a very, very narrow perspective and oftentimes out of context. And that's what I would close with. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hobbs. Next witness is Dennis Tabella. Dennis.
Yes.
Bob Craven, you're on the air.
Hi, Representative. Thank you. On behalf of the members of Defenders of Animals, the Humane Association of Northwestern Rhode Island, Volunteer Services for Animals, and of course Smith & Nagley's Potbelly Manor from North Kingstown, we all support House Bill number 5188, introduced by Representative Serpa and co-sponsored by Representatives O'Brien, Phillips, and Lima. As you know, the proposed legislation would prohibit the sale, offer of sale, and trade or distribution of fur products as defined. As you also know, the Animal Legal Defense Fund annual ratings has Rhode Island listed as number 5, just after Illinois, Oregon, Colorado, and Maine as having the best animal protection laws in the United States. This legislation that's before you tonight would be in line with that protection. It's publicly known that horrific animal cruelty is involved in making fur products. On our fur factory farms, wild animals spend their entire lives in cramped cages, deprived of the ability to engage in natural behaviors. The stress from living in a tiny cage causes serious welfare problems, such as self-mutilation and infected wounds, and can increase pathogen shedding and the risk of zoonotic disease transmission, such as COVID-19. There are unregulated animal killing methods in the fur industry, which I'm not going to describe tonight. The industry is full of inhumane practices, yet there are so many different options for warm and fashionable fabrics. The excruciating process that these animals go through for their fur must be ended. California, in September of 2019, became the first state to ban fur trapping. Rhode Island should not be part of this cruelty. As Rhode Island state representatives, I ask that you continue to protect animals and vote in favor of H5188. Thank you.
Thank you, Dennis. If there are no questions for Mr. Tabella, Michael Woods would be the next witness. Michael Woods?
Hello.
Yes, you're on the air. Proceed with your testimony.
Thank you, Chairman Craven and members of the committee. My name is Michael Woods, and I'm here today representing the New England chapter of Backcountry Hunters and Anglers, where I currently serve as the chair of the New England chapter board. I also live here in Rhode Island, and I hunt and fish here in Rhode Island. Backcountry Hunters and Anglers is a North American conservation organization that focuses on access and opportunity to public lands, waters, and wildlife, and advocates for science-based wildlife management that follows the North American model of wildlife conservation. The bill I'm speaking in opposition to, H 5188, is directed at banning the sale of fur products due to a range of concerns related to commercial fur farming. This topic is outside of my organization's focus area, and I can see that many people feel strongly about it. The reason that my organization opposes the bill has nothing to do with commercial fur farming, but has to do with the unintended effects it could have on hunters and trappers in Rhode Island. Hunting and trapping, including for fur-bearing animals, is an important tool that is utilized by the state to manage and balance wildlife populations, to achieve ecological goals, and to minimize conflicts between wildlife and people, pets, and property. The state manages wildlife carefully and through science, setting open seasons, method of take, and bag limits. My group recognizes hunting and trapping, including for fur-bearing animals, as valid and traditional pursuits. And without a well-stated and substantial reason to include the sale of fur from these legal practices that are highly regulated, we do not believe that the sale of fur from hunting and trapping should be included in a ban that has nothing to do with hunting and everything to do with addressing concerns related to commercial fur farming. Thank you for your consideration, and I'm happy to answer any questions the committee may have.
Any questions for Mr. Woods? Seeing none, next witness is Alan Herskovic, or Kovicki. Alan?
Chairman, he's not in the queue. His number was no good.
Okay.
I'm going to the next number now.
Michael Whalen? No response, Jimmy?
Not yet, Chair.
Let's go to the next one. John Daniel. While we're waiting, there were several witnesses we were unable to hook up with as far as getting them on the phone. Melanie Calandra, Catherine Maurice, Michael Zeller, Michael Whalen, and John Daniel. We're now attempting to get Steve Lakinkas. And for the members of the committee, there's only one more phone call to be made.
No answer on Steve.
Then we'll try the last witness, Kim Salvo. No response, Jimmy?
No response on it.
Okay. All right, that concludes testimony on House Bill 5100. Okay, we have one other caller that we weren't able to reach in reference to Chairwoman Serpa's bill, and he is on the line now. Steve, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, you're on the air. Please proceed with your testimony.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you to the committee that's staying late to hear all these testimonies.
Let's see.
I'll make it very brief. The Chairperson Serpa said a few things that really stood out to me. Like, one thing was that we are actually an industry that's out of style. Well, if we were out of style and irrelevant, why would you have to legislate us out of business? Why would you take the personal choice of people to wear a product away from them? Then there was an issue of ecosystems. Well, I suggest that before anything is put into motion, that the governing body actually do their due diligence. Actually do their due diligence and investigate what the actual facts are, which I believe Michael Brown was talking about earlier. But I want to get into another part of this whole discussion. And the discussion should also be about who's actually pushing this bill, which is Humane Society of the United States. It's an organization that tends to push a lot of mistruths and fallacies to try to get their agenda pushed through within the legislative bodies. Now, they knowingly do this, and they knowingly give false information. For example, HSUS had lost a court case a few years back against Rhode Entertainment, which anybody, I'd imagine most of the body remembers as Ringling Brothers Circus. They lost a $20 million suit because employees of the Humane Society were sent to Rhode Entertainment to infiltrate them and create photo ops so they can push towards legislative bodies like yourself. And through mistruths of saying that look at what the circus industry does, they abuse animals, it actually came out in court under oath that Humane Society's employees actually were the ones who committed those atrocities to those animals and testified to that fact. So I'd suggest that you actually look at who these organizations are. The other organizations are groups like PETA, which actually are the only group that I know of that have been prosecuted for actually killing puppies and kittens, because this same group that's trying to push this legislation through is a group that believes that you shouldn't eat meat, you shouldn't have medicine, you shouldn't have medical research, which if you look at the Animal Enterprise Terrorist Act, was pushed through under the Obama administration and under the Bush administration, because they didn't believe that there should be medical progress through animal testing. Well, these are the same scientists that we're protecting, that are trying to find cures to COVID, that gave us aspirin, that are trying to find cures to cancer. And these organizations don't want any of these things being tested on any kind of animal, regardless of what the consequences are to human life. Now, you can also go to PETA's advertisements and pull up these organizations and what they actually are for. So anybody that is there tonight or listening, if you own a pet, they consider you a slave owner. So if you go on the web and you type in PETA and slavery, you'll see a series of advertisements that come up where they consider you slave owners. And then I'll give you a little thing about the fur industry. In the fur industry, I'm a furrier. I lead an organization called Fur America. And when COVID struck and our first responders were dying literally in our hospitals, the fur industry is one of the only industries that volunteered its time to produce protective products for our first responders. Now, if I don't understand how Chairperson Serpa doesn't do any kind of research as to what the good things are about an industry and what the bad things are about an industry. You don't just go ahead and ban an industry because some organization, a small organization, wants you to pass some kind of legislate somebody out of business. Now, I stand for the millions of fur wearers, fur industry workers, that are out there trying to make a living, enjoying the product. And when you're talking about fur, you also have to understand what you're banning. So the fur industry, technically, is any fur-bearing animal. So whether it's a cow, which they say is, it's okay, you know, we're going to leave them alone because it's something that we eat, right? Or a shearling or a lamb because it's something that we eat. Well, I'd hate to break the news to you, but those 99-cent cans of pet food that you get are byproducts of the fur industry. Everything is used. Anybody who runs a business will understand, or a farming business will understand that everything that comes off of a farm is used, including the meats, including the oils. The finest leather polishes are made out of mink oil. Skin creams for burn victims are mink oil. There's a lot of good that comes out of these industries, and every avenue should be explored before any kind of bill to ban somebody's livelihood, any kind of industry. Everything should be explored. So with that, I will leave you, and if you have any questions, please feel free to contact me. Have a wonderful evening, and thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Steve, for your testimony, and now that concludes, finally, the House Bill 5188, but thanks for your input.